Hello, I'm Kelly Wright, senior White House correspondent for CBN News, and I'm here at the White House where we had an in-depth interview with the leaders of the president's newly formed White House Faith Office. You may ask why? Well, because the president finds that faith is very important to not only himself, but he believes that it will revitalize the American spirit to have faith, hope, and love in God and for country. Here now is my interview with Paula White and Jenny Korn. So Paula White and Jenny Korn, it's good to talk to you both. And Paula, it's been a while, but it's good to see you and catch up with you. Listen, when the president on February 7th of this year announced that he was launching the White House Faith Office and had chosen you, Paula, to be its senior advisor and you, Jenny, to be the faith director, I'm curious, why did both of you choose to say yes to the president's directive to lead this?
You know, I really feel for me it's been an assignment from God, meaning that this is a 24-year relationship with President Trump. And looking at the way that our country had gone, so far away from our foundations, so far away from our values, but yet with my husband who plays her journey, I was out on the road with him. I've pastored and been in ministry for 40 years, having been here in the administration before, not in the height of this like President Trump has elevated it, but I knew the people, that there was a stirring in people's heart, that we weren't all woke, that there were so many more that said, we believe there is a man and a woman. We believe that God is holy. We don't believe that our children should be mutilated at 6 years old or 8 years old, or we don't believe that parents should be stripped of their rights, or that the government has a right to spy on the Catholic Church, or that 300 of our churches are burned down and 100 of our pregnancy centers. So for me, there was a righteous anger, Kelly, and I had the honor and a rare opportunity. I did this because I see my grandchildren. I just looked at your beautiful grandson. I should say handsome grandson. I have these beautiful grandchildren living next door to me. I've been blessed, 40 years of ministry. And I said I would be wrong and maybe even sin for me to miss the mark if I didn't fulfill this to try to make our nation what God established it to be and give the future an opportunity. Because without God and without faith, we are a lost people.
When President Trump put something on the mantle like saying that I will have a White House Faith Office in the West Wing, you can't say no. I love this country. I love God. I love my family. And so many people of faith, people may think, oh, well, in America, you still have all your religious liberties. But I can tell you thousands of stories of where people of faith have been discriminated against and where religion has been diminished by the government. So when we have the opportunity to come to the White House, the most amazing place as far as government goes for America, to be able to take on that mantle for other people of faith to make sure that religious liberty and religious freedom are alive and well in America, there's no way you can turn that down. And my husband served in the Marine Corps for 22 years, and so this country to us is just, we love this country and we want to protect it any way we can.
What's at stake if we don't have this opportunity through the White House Faith Office?
When we look back at the last administration and what took place over a short period of 4 years, when President Trump was campaigning, he's the one that said, I want a task force on any bias of anti-Christian. And then he said anything anti-Semitic, anything anti-religious, because the more we dug into it, the more we realized we knew that there was a lot of discrimination. We knew that the government had gone against people of faith in every single department, lawsuits, arrests. I mean, we pardoned 23 people when he came in, almost the first week, for doing what? Praying in front of an abortion clinic. What about a pastor in Ohio that decided to bring the homeless in? And as of that, he was facing arrests and lawsuits. I mean, we could go on. What about a coach that kneeled in his private time on the side of a football field? Lost his job, almost lost everything. But thank God for a Supreme Court that had been put in the first time that said this is wrong lawfully. And I could go on and on. What would happen if President Trump had not paid the price? I believe the purpose of God, the plan of God for him to be this, but he had to say yes and keep pursuing and keep pushing. And he's paid almost the ultimate price, attempted assassination against his life, lawfare. We saw and the world saw firsthand how bad and how corrupt our government agencies, many of them, because many good people, but there are people that have corrupted a very good system. And I think God said, it's not over. And he's put an army of people that rose up. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this.
Take me back to Butler, PA, when the president went through that assassination attempt, and how he stated during his inaugural address that was a moment that changed his life. He felt that he was called by God to lead this nation. And at that particular time, during his inaugural address, you'll recall that he stated that America needs to put its faith in God, and that religion needs to be respected in America. What has that done for his relationship to God and to this country and to the world?
What a powerful moment for a person to be in that position where you literally could have died. He could have died. It was only because he moved his head an eighth of a millimeter to look at the screen, which usually comes at the end of his speech, what became at the beginning of it. And for him to, in that moment, say, this was because of God. And I'm giving homage and honor to God, as Paula says. And I remember that day. It was awful. I was in California. We were getting ready to go to the convention, and Paula was already crying. I was crying, and we just were going, what has happened to our country? But then to have him come back into office and then to continue, not to just go, it's a one-off, I believe in God. He has made good on what he felt, and what is in his heart and what is in his mind is that he knows that God is real, and that is why he is back at the White House. And he wants to make sure that everybody has their right to be able to worship the way they want to.
So as you know, the president has been talking about bringing peace through strength and becoming a peacemaker throughout the world. He's been negotiating for a peace between Ukraine and Russia, and also Israel and Hamas. Talk to me about that and how your office works with the president to find that peace that he's striving for.
We had 23 family members of the victims from October 7th. It's one of the most difficult things I've had to do, Kelly. I'm a pastor at heart, and to hear their stories. The father of a man who had 2 babies, think about this, 2.5 months and a few years old. The 2 boys, when they brought 4 of them out to release the hostages, and they took 2 back and lynched them, beat them. It was beyond, I was weeping. I had 2 pastors with me. They were weeping. But we also were hearing their stories, one for human reason, but it was a deeper connection also to be an advocate. The advocacy here that happens, whether it was the beatitude from Ukraine, the archbishops of the Orthodox Church that all came to us to talk about the 67 priests that have been murdered, or talk about to us from a religious liberty. The president wants to know all of these things. Every single person of faith is heard here in America and around the world, because religious liberty is at the heart of having, as Jenny said, the freedom to practice your faith. And so the American people, we have just come on, I guess we came in week 2, right? Yep. And it has been literally nonstop every day. Today we had 80 Hispanic pastors, meetings after Jewish coalitions. We've been with Catholics. We've had listening sessions, which are people involved in policy. And it's not only us telling them what the president's doing, but also we want to hear what would they like done. And they're people that know policy well. So they come, we do an all day. We work on our initiatives, we hear what is important, what's happening out in the communities, in the states, and then we take that and we start the process, which is very extensive here. And we work diligently to bring forth transformation and change for what President campaigned on, and then what he also needs to know about from people in America.
What are your concerns about what's taking place in Syria, where Alawite Muslims and Christians are being persecuted and killed by the radical Islamic group that has taken over power in Syria?
quite honestly, right as soon as we're done with all this, we have a briefing. And so the way the government works, as you know, we have a wonderful head of National Security Council. This administration is on it. They don't sit on anything. They're very aware of what's happening around the world and making sure, again, that we stand against any kind of wrongful killing, persecution, to have the stats that have come out in the last day or so, Kelly, and we're all trying to follow these, that 1 in 7 Christians around the world are persecuted. And so we know the hot spots, we know the places, and we're very on this and working diligently to make sure that our government works with other governments and does what is necessary.
Well, Paula and Jenny, you're aware that the president has also launched a task force to deal with anti-Christian bias as well as anti-Semitic behavior. And of course, on the college campus of Columbia and Barnard College in New York City, we've seen throngs of protesters protesting against Jewish students and against Israel and even against America. Mahmoud Khalil was detained by ICE and is now in a Louisiana prison awaiting his fate to see what will happen as a result of him being a leader of this pro-Hamas group as well as pro-Palestinian group. But the issue is, it's part of the anti-Christian bias that we're seeing unfold in America and the anti-Semitic behavior that we're seeing unfold in this country as well. What are your concerns about this?
You know, it will not be tolerated to spew hate and hurt to people by this administration. And if a person wants to peacefully protest, that's one thing. But this has not been peaceful. It has been hateful. It has been hurtful. And it will not be tolerated by this president or his administration. And our office enforces that very strongly.
In the last 4 years, and those college presidents allowed Jewish students to feel afraid, to be tormented, to be discriminated against, to be spat at, to be violence against them, and they allowed that to happen. President Trump comes in and he's like, that's not going to happen anymore. And so he's setting an example. A lot of it is who's at the top and who's setting that example. So other people look at it and go, I guess it's not so bad. We're shining the light on it and saying, no, this will not be tolerated, and this is bad. You cannot discriminate against people of Jewish faith, and also it gets to the point where they are not just pro-Palestinian, they're pro-Hamas. They literally have pro-Hamas flags, literature. Hamas is a terrorist organization that killed thousands of people. Continue to kill, and if they could, would still continue to do that. So setting that example in the White House Faith Office is one of those communication arms to make sure that we're setting that example for the rest of America.
In healing America, healing the soul of America, some people are concerned about the way forward because they're losing their jobs through DOGE and through other aspects of cutting away waste and fraud. How do you help the people who are heartbroken in losing their jobs? How does the White House Faith Office reach out to touch them?
I would say the White House Faith Office is also the Office of Hope. And the one thing that we're seeing when we're meeting with all of these faith leaders from every ethnic background, every denomination, and from every state is they're like, thank you so much for meeting with us. Basically, they were ignored for the last 4 years. So now they have a voice. They come to us when they tell us what it is that they're worried about. And yes, people of faith have many different concerns aside from religious freedom, although religious freedom is like the first and foremost thing that they're worried about. They want to be able to worship here. But think about the hurt that people have been in the 4 years before that. I worked for President Trump all 4 years in the 45 administration. The lowest unemployment, the best job numbers, in the Black and the Hispanic and the Asian communities and the women communities. So people were doing very well. And so when COVID happened and they shut down everything, which we didn't even talk about shutting down all the churches, that's when things started to deteriorate, and Biden came in and basically broke everything with inflation. You want to talk about people losing their jobs. a lot of people, a lot more people are losing their jobs now. And those jobs that are in government where DOJ is looking at, remember, those are being paid for by taxpayer dollars. So we can't, as a government, just say, well, we just need to pay for everything, because it is truly people of faith and whoever, American citizens, we're paying for this. And so we look at our office as the office of hope and being able to reach out our hands, bring people to the table, and let them have a real voice, not a pretend voice where, oh yeah, we're gonna placate you, but they come to us, we listen to what they're concerned about, then we go to the president and say, how are we going to work on this policy? What is that going to look at like in legislation and executive orders for real change and for just real success? And you're going to see in the next few months that turnaround from the whole Biden administration. We're going to head back to the great numbers and even better than what Trump did in 45.
When you're meeting with the president and you're working in the capacity as the faith director for the White House Faith Office, how do you conduct meetings? Do you start off with prayer? Is it something you want to extend to the cabinet? Because we saw Scott Turner, the Secretary of HUD, open up a cabinet meeting with an incredible prayer that resonated so well, not with just the cabinet members, but with the American people. Is that something you're now doing at all of your cabinet meetings and other meetings where you come together? What's it like to be with the president and see this manifestation of faith and prayer taking place in the White House?
For me personally, a 24-year relationship, I'll just feel led to pray, and I'll say, can I pray for you, sir? And he's now grown accustomed to laying hands on him and praying over him and praying the word. And I love it when we rolled out the EO. Of course, we would have loved for you to be in there. He said we had 32 pastors, that's all that could fit in, and rabbi, priest, etc., a little bit of everyone. And he stopped and he said, and he put up angels, gold angels, on each side of the Oval Office. And he started asking about Scripture. And he said, don't angels protect you and watch over you? And he did that, of course, all on his own. And I loved it. I looked up, and sure enough, there were some cherubims up there. And I said, good choice, sir. And I started giving him Scripture, and we prayed over him. But he is... he's the wisest man. I mean, one of the wisest people I've ever known. He's a strategist. He's very witty. He's funny, but he's very tender towards God. And Kelly, I've talked a lot about his faith. I know we did a big faith summit prior to coming into the White House. Jenny was the executive director at National Faith Advisory Board, and I was president, and we did a faith summit right before the election. And I had the advantage of knowing his story. I knew his mom was a strong woman of faith and a prayer person, that his father would take him to Billy Graham crusades, how much that shaped him. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, he's probably quoted me, 15 of his sermons. I mean, he was there until the day he retired. He said it was such a sad day. And how much, I knew who he watched on television, from Jimmy Swaggart to myself to so many others, Bill Gaither, I mean, it's really interesting. And so faith has been such a large part. And that word, he's very attracted to the anointing and to the presence of God. And he really is protective over people of faith and understands the foundation of faith.
I would say, too, it's important to say that he asks all the time, how are my pastors doing? How are my faith, how are my rabbis, how are my priests doing? Throughout the country, yes.
Yeah, all the time. Whenever he sees us, how are my pastors doing? And he always reminds us, we're so grateful. He elevated this to the highest level, put the faith, it's the White House Faith Office. As Jenny said, faith directors in every agency, every cabinet, 8 tenants. He put the main office in the West Wing. Kelly, you know how small. This has very few offices over here. And he reminds us, and he told everyone, that's your office. And he says, Paul and Jenny will be on call 24/7.
He did tell them that.
We pretty much are. And we are here to serve the people. We're here to serve people. And he gave it 7 staff members in the EOP, Executive Office of the President, plus so much more. You understand the significance of that. Other presidents have had faith, but never to this level.
So as you reach out to heal the soul of America and this great divide that we have, how do you help all Americans understand the founding of our nation through its Judeo-Christian principles and understanding that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord?
I love all people. We've always opened the White House to people You can't change a person's heart, only God can do that. But we certainly love people, hear people out, stand with people, and welcome people. I think people would be amazed how many independents and Democrats or Republicans, et cetera, or nothing, nons, have joined over, and I call it a movement, because you said it, President Trump is a peacemaker. And when we look at what he did in his campaign, from bringing independents, Democrats, nons, people who'd never been involved in politics, it's a movement, that it's something deeper than just a party. And God is really at work in this place.
Yeah, I can't think you can overstate the coalition that President Trump put together. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, people from the unions. He got 46% of the Hispanic vote, a record number in the black vote, Asian vote, women vote, youth vote. So, Republican, Democrat, this is a Trumplican. That's what we are in right now. But he's bringing everybody together. And you see, the labels don't matter. He's bringing everyone to the table. And that's the same thing with people of faith. It doesn't matter. We don't ask, are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? When we have meetings here at the White House, we just want you to come in and have a voice. And the people who are rational thinking and want to get something done and work together for the better of America are meeting with us.
What's your hope for America?
A great reformation and a revival.
My hope for America is that Americans truly understand what our founding is, and we were founded on God. And we shouldn't shy away from that. In our money, it says, "In God we trust." And for people to truly know what the definition of separation of church and state means, it means that the government can't dictate your religion, but people of faith have every right to have a voice in their government.
And our thanks again to Paula White as well as Jenny Korn, leaders of the White House Faith Office. And we thank you for watching.